This is how India landed on the south pole of the moon. No country apart from India has been able to achieve this feat. India made history on the 23rd of August at around 6:04 p.m. Indian Standard Time. And it's a day that will be etched in the memory of every Indian and every space enthusiast. Just 4 years back, India's Chandrayaan-3 had lost control and lost contact with the control room while trying to land on the moon. It sent another lunar mission in less than 4 years. Chandrayaan-3 was given a stronger lander compared to its predecessor. It was also given an increased landing range, more fuel and more solar panels. And only 3 other countries have landed on the moon till date: the United States, the Soviet Union and China. But all of these missions landed near the moon's equator. Landing there is much safer and easier compared to the South Pole. In the South Pole, you have no sunlight, the temperature goes below minus 230 degrees Celsius, and to make things more difficult, there are large craters. In just 5 decades, ISRO has now carved a niche for itself with successful, cost-effective missions. And I want to stress on that for a little bit, because India boasts among the most cost-effective missions ever. It had the most cost-effective Mars mission, Mangalyaan. Our moon missions cost less than Hollywood movies. It's a success story of an organization that has dared to dream, that started its space mission by turning a church into a launch station. From there, it became a dream of an entire nation. A dream which began with cycles and bullock carts, with limited resources. What India had at that time was zeal and the belief in itself, in its unmatched talent and its scientists, the likes of Vikram Sarabhai, Satish Dhawan, APJ Abdul Kalam, Dr. Sivan, Dr. Somnath. The results there are for everyone to see. Chandrayaan-3 is on the moon and Indians are over the moon. The obvious question is, what's next? Number 1, research and scientific exploration. Chandrayaan-3 will be carrying out experiments to check the habitability of exoplanets. It will be detecting and studying lunar quakes. It will also be studying the lunar soil and, most importantly, exploring to see if ice and water exist in sufficient quantities on the moon. But what's next is also a boom in India's entire space sector. More and more players will want to ride on the success of Chandrayaan-3 and the interest it has created in the country and jump aboard India's space journey. The government of India is already encouraging more private players to join the space economy. With Chandrayaan-3 on the moon, all eyes are now on ISRO's next big projects. You have Aditya L1, India's first space-based mission to study the sun. The mission will launch in September and will travel 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth. Also in the pipeline is Gaganyaan, ISRO's first human space flight. In other words, for ISRO and India, the moon is just the beginning. What lies ahead is a very interesting era, hopefully, of leadership in space exploration. And to talk about this and more, I have with me Chris Hadfield, former commander of the International Space Station and the author of The Apollo Murders and The Defector. Chris, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure and a privilege to be speaking to you as one of the former commanders of the International Space Mission. Tell me, you saw Chandrayaan-3 landing on the south pole of the moon. How do you and the rest of the world interpret this?
You know, I don't want to speak for the rest of the world, but from what I've seen and what I've gathered, I think it's a bit of a surprise for the rest of the world. Now, I've known, obviously, about the Indian space program for decades and the accomplishments of ISRO and all the things that have happened. But until something really significant happens, it's like until someone wins a gold medal at the Olympics, often you just don't pay attention. And with this accomplishment, with Chandrayaan successfully soft landing on the moon, and now with the rover driving around, it got the world's attention. This is a significant accomplishment, and I think it has really enlightened the world as to what India is capable of.
Now, Chris, you're the best person to tell us about this because you've actually been into space 3 times. If you ask anybody at ISRO, it seems very clear that what they're really looking at as the next big challenge is to get an Indian into space on an Indian spacecraft, the Gaganyaan mission, in other words. Talk to us a little bit about that. How getting a human into space is something altogether different, right? There's life at stake out there. The stakes are therefore so much higher.
When we launch a satellite or a robot into space, if it fails, then it's tragic or it's sad. But when a human being is flying into space, the stakes are so much higher. It becomes a global imperative. It's a grand human adventure, and the stakes are the highest, and the risk is very high. But everything worth doing in life. And so I think the fact that India has now successfully landed on the moon, has chosen some astronauts, some of the best in the country who are training, and is building a vehicle capable of taking people to space, it's a logical enough step, but it is a very different step.
Thank you so much, Chris, and we look forward to talking to you in much greater detail when Gaganyaan is all set to go into space. Thank you so much for being with us.